Hey,
Hey man, what's good?
yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing some shit. It's funny how a moving company can damage all your shit and then further inconvenience you with the insurance process.
Right. That's their main line of yeah, insurance is just like defense for companies these days.
Yep. The trick is just have nothing valuable. Don't own
Oh yeah.
anything.
Yeah, that is actually going forward into the future. I feel like that's the only way we can protect ourselves is just not owning anything means we can't get scammed by the stuff we own.
Yeah, well, you got to maintain the things you own. You got to pay for them. And then you have expenses, and then you need to have income to handle those expenses, which forces you to work or have enough money in the bank to live off of interest, etc. And I'm realizing it's all fucking bullshit. I don't want any of it.
Yeah, it makes me think like a lot of the most expensive or fragile stuff I own is like my desk and desktop computer and monitors and stuff. And I often think if at some point we get lightweight glasses that can project monitors on them, that would remove a lot of the valuables that are difficult to move that I own. Like if I wanted to change houses, I could just bring like a lightweight pair of glasses and a keyboard, and if that if when I put the glasses on it made it seem like I was looking at monitors, that would solve the issue of buying and moving and physically storing like a large screens and fragile tech.
Hmm.
And that would, so that's kind of my prediction for like the next like game changing technology would be able to, if it can like allow us to watch videos and play video games using like some kind of lightweight headset, then that removes so much of the reason that we're like glued to a couch if we want to play a video game or something. But that would make it like it would be a new paradigm. You could just play big games like wherever you are and travel a lot more easy.
Hmm. Yeah. Anyway, man, it's all very frustrating.
Mm.
Also, too, now that I've acquired so I sold Ottawa, I'm gonna take it for my BC place, and I'm there now, and I'm just like looking at all the damage caused by my tenants'
Mm.
time, and it's just like you left holding the bag, man. They pay
Mm.
market value is that, which doesn't cover your mortgage, maintenance costs, insurance, and all that. You're paying for a property for someone to live in it, for them to destroy the property. And I'm like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. None of it makes sense.
Yeah, that must be the unseen part of renting. It's like where on paper it looks good, you're making money for holding the property, but when you tally everything up, the even just the like the mental and like the mental investment or the time investment of like sometimes for me it's not even the money. It's just like I don't want to do the legwork of like calling some people, getting it repaired. Like uh, it just generates yeah. Mm.
Yeah, because I have like almost 50 items that were damaged by this moving company. And I've taken
Mm.
pictures and I've like identified all the damage. I'm not allowed to repair it or do anything. I submitted everything. And I'm very like meticulous, right? And they're like, oh, well, we need to have a third party inspector to come in. And that third party inspector can't come in for another month or two.
Oh wow.
So I have to sit with my damaged shit for over a month. And I'm just like,
Mm.
how is this fair? Like, you break my shit and I gotta wait for a month while it's broken? Like, my fucking coffee table is like messed up. Like, what?
Yeah, and definitely like most people would not, that amount of waiting is like not even doable for most people. So that right away like the company would win the claim because people would just bail on does this like arbitrarily long process.
Yeah. on, man. It's just it's not worth it at the end of the day.
I'm watching this
That's where I'm
show.
at.
Have you seen a show called The Rehearsal by, or do you know of this comedian like Nathan Fielder?
No.
Uh, it's a pretty. I got sort of sucked into this show. He like the basic premise. It's called The Rehearsal, and every episode sort of features like a very in-depth rehearsal for some like life event that some random stranger he's found. He wants to help them prepare for some kind of life event. So like for example, one simple scenario was a someone who's part of a trivia group wanted to like reveal to the trivia group that he didn't have a master's degree, and he was very nervous that they would be angry that he originally lied about this master's degree and then has to break the truth to them. And so but the whole episode of the show, it's like 40 minutes long, like Nathan Fielder, the director of the show, like recreates an entire like the bar where the guy has invited one of the trivia group members to have the conversation about the fake master's degree. He recreates like the entire restaurant and hires actors to like sit around the restaurant, and they rehearse and they make like flow charts of how the conversation might go, and they do like this like fake trivia in the bar because that's what the real event's going to be, and they just go like into like this odd level of detail, like recreating every detail of this like scenario so they can rehearse it. And then at the end, they sort of do the real scenario and see how it goes. But then there's sort of like wild variations on that. Like he gets kind of meta with it, and sometimes you don't. Like there's a funny episode where it's like a guy and his girlfriend, going on the first date, but the girlfriend is like an actor, and the guy is kind of nervous, so he like tells the guy like, I'm gonna recreate like your whole apartment on set, and then we're gonna have like your girlfriend, we're gonna cast her as an actor, and then you and her will like go on the first date on the set, with like a script and sort of a little bit of improv stuff. And so basically like the rehearsal is just like them in a fake version of his apartment, undergoing like this like script, and that's like in some sense like a rehearsal for the real first date or something. But it gets kind of funny because it's just like this massive like blending of reality and fiction.
That's a show?
Yeah, it's 2 seasons. There's about like 8 episodes for each season, and each episode features very like some kind of rehearsal, but then each season has like a underlying theme. Like a lot of the episodes in season 1 feature him like he's like a father to like a fake kid. Like he has like a house with a bunch of cameras in it, and he has like a fake wife and a fake kid, and they pretend like the kid grows up at an accelerated rate. They keep swapping out child actors, and he's like sort of getting the experience of being a father, he says, like through that. But then at the same time he's doing other rehearsals like each episode, and just kind of checking back in with like his rehearsed like family life. And then in season 2 it's all about like airline pilots. He has this theory that airline pilots don't talk to the co-pilot enough, and that leads to like crashes. And so he uses like flying simulators, and he recreates like a whole wing of the Houston airport on set, so he can like run these scenarios of pilots and actors and stuff like going through the airport lounges, and he studies how they communicate. And eventually like the finale of season 2 is quite insane. Like he actually learns a lot about flying himself, and then there's sort of a wild finale that is quite like unexpected. But I just found like now I start thinking of everything through that lens of like what would a rehearsal for moving be. Like you could sort of, it's just like taking all your stuff and having someone like hit all your furniture with a bat, and then you just like you just get told like that's what happened, and then the rehearsal is like essentially like the psychological dealing with that, because then in reality like something similar happens, but then in reality it's like of course the company's gonna pretend like, oh, we didn't realize that's gonna happen. And it's just funny how like a lot of life events, the rehearsal just seems so ridiculous, but then the real life event is even weirder. And yeah, it's just a funny like it's supposed to be like a comedy show, but a lot of it is like gets kind of philosophical the more you watch like people rehearse real life things.
Okay. Yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a HBO show, and I started like the season 2 just came out and it's finished, so people were like talking about it more, and so I was hearing about it on different podcasts, but I was kind of not, because the problem is like when you have a show where you're sort of doing little pranks on people that are not expecting it, like regular people on the street or that you've like called in, you can sort of see like you're pushing them a little bit awkwardly, and some of the comedy is coming from like they're not expecting to be like tricked or whatever, and so that makes me feel like a bit anxious like watching that. But
Yeah.
the more it's weird because the like at first I was like not watching the show because I just felt I didn't want to see people get like messed with, but then the more I watch it, the more I feel it's like Nathan Fielder himself sort of wants answers to like why do people do certain things socially, and why do people behave a certain way, and how will they like can we predict how they're going to behave, or if people are nervous about something in life, how do we make them more comfortable doing that thing. And his main, because the show's titled The Rehearsal, he's often taking this angle of like how do we best rehearse for these things in life that we have to do to make sure they go well or to make us more comfortable with them. But then the thing is, when the rehearsal becomes realistic enough, you're not rehearsing anymore. You're just doing the life event, and you can never like practice feeling a certain way before you feel that way without feeling that way, and you never know how you're going to react. And so it's just like, to me, I got swept up in the like pondering that. And I often think like these recordings that we do here are like the opposite of the show, The Rehearsal, where in The Rehearsal, he's like making a fake Hollywood set to prepare for real life. And then what we're doing here is like, this is real life. We're just having like a real life conversation, but we're going backwards and like changing it into content. In order, it's almost like to give real life more meaning, we're like producing content from it rather than like practicing for real life, which is maybe the more odd way to go about it. But that's the comedy, I guess, of The Rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also too, sharing the lessons we've learned from our experiences. But like
Yeah.
I was just saying today, it's like it's funny how life works that way, where you get the experience and then the lesson.
Mm.
But talking about it and sharing our stories, you kind of like you share what as you learn. And
Mm-hmm.
I was also saying this even before today. I forget. I think it was to my partner. It was like I wish I just didn't have these experiences and these things to deal with, these heads. I wish I just already knew. 'Cause I
Yeah.
don't want the experience anymore. I don't want. I already have the lesson. The experience now needs to end, and the experience is still happening. It's like getting out of the real estate situation in the U.S. or the lawsuit. It's like, yeah, I got lots of experience. I am ready for it to be done.
Yeah.
And yeah, out of all of it, I was like, I've been too busy prioritizing what other people think is important
Right.
and their priorities. So first it was the military, then it was like, oh, building a real estate portfolio. That's cool. That's sexy, whatever. They like do that because like the optics of it, like wealth building. Oh, I need to put my money to work and yada 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 because that's what Robert Kiyosaki said. But it's no. What's important is living life
Yeah.
and finding what it is you enjoy and being active and being healthy so that you can have the longest possible life. Like I hear people say, "Oh, well, you only live once." So I want a fucking venture every other day and swim myself into so I become a kidney. I don't know. Like they're like I only live once, and their justification is I'm gonna live hard and fast, and it's like, well, that's stupid. Like fucking no, like prolong your life, enjoy it, and have multiple experiences. Like it's I think differently. I think than a lot of people have come across
Mm.
over the years, and I'm very much like all about simplicity. And I'm also now realizing too, it's like men and women have cycles based off their hormones, but we all are kind of governed by cortisol, and cortisol spikes in the morning and decreases throughout the day. I am a strong believer that we should all get whatever it is we need to get done in the morning and relax in the afternoon when our cortisol starts to drop. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is something that involves physical activity. So get the workout done in the morning. Get the biggest, you know, the task consume the most brain juice done in the morning and relax in the afternoon. Because what's the point working afternoon? We're not as effective when we're tired and sluggish.
Yeah.
Like it's let the cortisol drop so that we can have a restful sleep, shut the acts, and begin again the next day. And I suppose part of the issue is this whole glorification of overperforming. It's like it's what most valuable is what you bring to the table, not who you are as a person. Yeah, I don't like that. But that's capitalist. That's the capitalist way.
That's what
So anyway, well, go for it.
like construction is like a job where they get up really early in the morning, and then I guess they end a bit earlier. And then in like countries in the south, they have like a super long lunch break where they can like go home and like sleep a bit and stuff, but they still come back in the afternoon, which is sort of like it would be better to just like work in the morning than end at lunch rather than have a long
Yeah.
lunch break and come back. It's kind of like still overworking. Yeah.
And between 1 and 4, have a siesta, and then enjoy your evening being social and stuff. Like
Yeah.
you have a sense of accomplishment. You've trained your body, you've worked out, you have the endorphins. It's just realizing it makes sense to prioritize things in the morning. And everybody wants to fucking book you. Doctors and contractors, they want to book you in the morning. So they want everything done in the morning as well. But it's like, no, it gets in the way of being active and going to the gym or going on hikes. I just committed to something tomorrow. I love it. Like, I just said I wouldn't fucking do that because now I have to think about that all morning while I do my hike or whatever. It's like, no, I fucked up.
But what's the
But
better solution then? You want to book it earlier or later?
no, every thing is in the afternoon. Things that
And
don't
you want
require energy from me
yeah.
should be done in the afternoon, and other
Oh yeah.
people can revolve around what I need.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
can be. I mean, these individuals are, doing inspections and stuff. They don't need to, they can do all that in the afternoon. It's not labor intensive. But I think the physical activity should be done earlier in the day when the cortisol is higher, the blood sugar is higher, and
And it's colder.
I
Like
need
once
to.
the sun gets out in the afternoon, it gets hot.
There's that too. Yeah, good point, especially in Central America.
Mm.
So physical activity really should be just limited to the morning. So these are the things that I'm learning as I go. And like yesterday, I had a timing, and it got in the way of me being able to do the full loop around the mountain that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I had to cut it short. I had to think about this task that had to be done. And then I did it again to myself. But really, that should just be not. And if I have an appointment, prioritize it for the afternoon, late afternoon, after I have lunch and after I have my nap.
I still sometimes, if I have any appointment like before the day is done, sometimes I get stuck thinking about it. Like if I have something to do at like 3 in the afternoon, sometimes it does interfere with my ability to fully like zone out in the morning or do like, I feel like I can't do an unending walk because I need to be like sort of somewhere where I can get back by a certain time. So then I feel like, but I read a book one time that said that that's like a human psychological thing where if we're like waiting on something, like we're waiting for guests to arrive at our house at some point, then we'll just be like we'll have a lot of trouble sitting down and focusing, knowing that like at some point these people will arrive. So we sort of lose quality thought or like focus when we're expecting like some kind of event.
Yeah.
That's kind of with meetings. Like if I, at work, there'll be like meetings throughout the day. And I find like if I have a couple hours in between meetings, that's hard to get going when I know like, or if there's like 1 hour in between meetings, it's like, what can I do in an hour before the next meeting that's going to interrupt things? And so that's like a lot of lost time.
Yeah. Fuck meetings.
Yeah.
Those are a waste of time. People have meetings for the sake of having meetings and drives me nuts.
Yeah. I was starting to wonder, uh, like maybe I'll be looking at like what other careers or jobs might interest me, but at the moment, I have this idea in mind. Like I have this job title, creative director, and I don't really know what creative directors do, but there's often one like at game studios or like magazines or something have them, and that sounds like an interesting. Like it sounds kind of like a management style job where you don't really have subordinates. You are working as like an in between like the creative department and maybe multiple creative departments, like trying to make all the creative people like work together smoothly. That would be my guess. But that sort of sounds like a fun like discipline to target, where you're sort of like the middleman to just keep things moving forward creatively and deliver like a consistent vision in the end by bringing together all the like helping to bring together all the parts. And I guess it would just be meetings. Like that kind of person would just be like meeting with different departments and relaying like information. But the goal of like the purity of the vision, or like maybe even yourself as creative director would have some people come up with a vision or come up with a little bit of a vision yourself, and then just trying to like realize that vision using the resources that are available. That's something I'm going to start like looking at jobs and reading to job descriptions to see like who are these people and what do they do and what skills are you supposed to have. But it seems kind of like a neat area to learn about.
Yeah.
I think the only
I think it,
creative, or yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just like I think it's a good idea to bounce around different jobs. You get new experiences
Hmm.
because staying in one job you'll be taken for granted, taking advantage of. And I think it's good being able to move around. And they said that before the optics of moving around look good, but you know what? Those days of being in a company give you like a pension after
Right.
working for 30 years, those days are over. It's
Yeah.
all about working for the person who's going to offer you the best. I'd say someone that knows their worth won't settle for less than their worth. That's a good person. That's the person that's like, if they choose to go with you, they think that you're the right fit. Like that's great.
Hmm.
It's not just about what the company offers. Sorry, it's not just what the employee offers the company. The company will offer the employee. Not just a one-way street. So it's like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to be looking for work, other opportunities, even when you have one. Options open. You know, give someone the opportunity to do that. If you're unhappy in your situation, you're like, yeah, I don't like this. This is what I want. You don't like, okay, no change. Well, then you have plan B or C.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder like each country has like an old age pension that's from the government that's like a small amount if you're over a certain age. And I wonder it'd be kind of interesting to find people like older people that are older than 65 that have no additional pension other than just like the government pension. And I guess maybe they would have to own a house. Like I don't see how they could make it work if they didn't own a house. But if they just like owned a house, had no other money, and just had this like government pension, and then sort of like document their life, like do they do they have like a house and that's clean, and can they afford groceries, and what are like the unexpected expenses or challenges. But if they could make it work, that would be interesting. That if they had sort of like a typical old person sedentary life with this like small government pension, and it would just be interesting to see how many people are living that life like in a successful way, that not just being like completely homeless or something, or living with like family directly.
Well, how many people have that life? Probably too many. More people
Mm.
have that life probably than they should, because there's a lot of folks that are in retirement.
Yeah.
Are they doing well? I don't know. To get to that
Mm-hmm.
point, not a retirement plan means like a lot of people actually banked on their home being their retirement plan. But
Mm-hmm.
in order for that to make sense, you got to downsize, incur costs, relocate. And so I don't know, I think people need more than that as a retirement plan. Because
Yeah.
you got to pay for, even if your house is fully paid for, you got to pay for all the expenses, utilities, insurance, property tax. People don't factor in property tax on a monthly basis as an expense. And if you're in a condo, which elderly people tend to gravitate towards because it's less maintenance, you pay maintenance fees just
Mm-hmm.
stacked on your property tax. So can you live off CPP? I haven't done the math. Things like CPP or whatever, is it CCP or CPP? I think it's CPP. I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
that's around when we hit 65.
Yeah, you think it'll like go
It may
away,
not.
like they just
No,
like
the
remove it.
government might use it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
government might just use it up, tap into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does feel like that with a lot of things, that like we're paying into it, but by the time we get there, it's not going to benefit us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just fascinated with
financially.
this because it's sort of like if everything doesn't go our way, if the only thing we have going for us is like citizenship in a country, it would be nice to know that there's some kind of like, it would just be fascinating to know if that's all someone has is citizenship in a country and they're above 65, what does their life look like? They get the pension, they get somewhere to live or something, and then watching that video, we would know like in the worst case scenario, that's kind of what situation we would be in, is just having nothing except for a passport and being 65, and then what do you do in life basically? I guess there's people that
I don't
work over
know.
that. Like maybe they retire from one job, but they pick up. I guess you can be like there's like little jobs one might have to pick up that are doable at
Hallmark
old age.
reader.
Yeah, these little like it's funny. There's a whole like if you need a bit extra money, there exists jobs that are just invented to like pay you minimum wage, but then you wonder like the job is so meaningless at some point that why not just give people minimum wage if they ask for it? Like why make them stand 8 hours a day somewhere doing something when just pay them to sit at home and have fun, and then it gets interesting because then you're like, and send a documentary crew with them, and then make a great documentary out of just this person getting paid minimum wage to do whatever they want. And you'd come up with some kind of like you could form it as like a character, and then all of a sudden it's very interesting. It's like that could be the coolest thing ever. Uh, but instead, yeah, it's just people doing these like shuffling paper jobs or something because they have to make ends meet.
Yeah, I don't know. Situation sucks. I think a lot of it comes down to people not being financially literate
Mm.
and thinking that you have to pay a big bank to have an account, and like there's so many things like accepting overdraft fees or understanding like how much a cash advance actually costs. and relative to like average return on the stock market, yeah, it's doesn't guarantee, but they want 20% of our fucking pay. Like they're charging 20% advance interest. 20% is a crazy amount of money. And some people who can't afford to live and don't have the credit for a credit card have to rely on these cash advances.
Mm.
And they're stuck. Or
That
if they get
too
a
is
credit
so.
card,
Yeah, it's like I don't want to like pry into people's lives, but it would be so fascinating to just like hang out in front of a payday loans thing and just like whoever shows up, just ask if you can interview them, and like they would tell you like why are they getting this payday loan, do they understand, and then just kind of like ask if you can follow them around and just see their job, their life, and just like profile like the people that are kind of reluctantly interacting with payday loans. But the problem is then, like, if I put that up on my YouTube channel, like, you sort of would have to hope that it doesn't ruin their life or rat them out, or maybe they would be a bit like embarrassed of getting seen. So maybe you could like hide their identity, but then still you'd have to do it. You'd have to sort of take responsibility, and it would just be like these interesting stories to tell. But all the work around like getting the releases done and using their appearance, and what if the video went viral? Like, it just feels like you can't really tell the story because you need to protect people's privacy. But it, if that wasn't a concern, it would be so interesting to just get that knowledge. Maybe
you
that's
don't need
why
to follow
people
them
write
around. You
articles.
can just
Yeah.
simply ask them the same series of questions and be like, just be consistent. You don't need to ask their name.
Hmm.
Just ask them questions. Why are you here today? Do you know about interest? Do you understand how credit cards work? If you ever had a credit card, if you've had a credit card, why are you not using your credit card now? And these are all questions, and probably one of them will all have the same answers.
Hmm.
So
Or some of
it's
them would get like, people could get like angry, or it would be tough to, like, you'd hope that you find someone that's just willing to like share the info in a chill way, but
no, no. You pay, so you'd be like, you ask them how much you going to borrow, and if it's like, I don't know, $1,000, okay, I'll pay for half of the cost of this loan, or I'll give you something for your time.
Hmm.
I'll give you $20 if you answer these questions. The more you offer them, the more enticed they'll be, I think.
Yeah,
It's like,
there's probably so many interesting little, like, if that, getting into that habit, like, you could get access to so many interesting places and stuff, just like offering small amounts of money for someone, or like I'm sure people would do it for free too, if it's like, if they're like the janitor at some like stadium or something, and you're just like I just want to follow you around for a day and like show me all the behind the scenes stuff and some of the messes that like are left there, and what are your hours, and like it would just be like a fascinating profile. Like, anything is just, it just seems like that's kind of the impression I get from the rehearsal too, is like, and there's a couple other shows I've watched where they kind of start by just picking a random stranger that's on the street, and then they just, like, sometimes some shows will ask like, can I head back to your house with you, or can you show me your house, or they'll ask questions, and then all of a sudden this whole random plot like unfolds where you just, this person's life is so deep and strange in some way. Like, everyone has some kind of weird, strange thing about them that is so unexpected, that it starts feeling like there's these amazing stories like with every person, and we just, people have their private lives, and we don't really have a way to like get in there without uh, invading them or something, or opening up. It's just some kind of like defamation lawsuit or something.
interesting stuff. Well, I'm hearing about 65-year-olds that don't have any retirement plans, and it was just like, that's rough. That's stressful. come to work as you get older. Being at the mercy of somebody else and a paycheck from day to day. I don't know, it's just not going to be.
Mm-hmm. But those people like in those situations, I bet have interesting perspectives on life in that like if somebody is just so trapped and at the mercy of different fees and like the harshness of the system that is not working for them, then when you talk to them about like how are you like keeping it all together, like what do you do to relax or something, or when can you relax, I bet that's where it gets interesting. Like they just probably
Drink
instinctively,
alcohol,
you know. Yeah, some of it I guess
smoke
is like,
weed.
and yeah, that would be like the non-interesting part. And but I guess a lot of
That's,
people
I'm
like
sure a lot of,
self medicate or something.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of part of the whole like predatory industry. Like this like sports gambling, alcohol, payday loans, minimum wage jobs. It's all like designed to like trap people at a certain level and just kind of like profit off them and keep them there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching
It's a cruel, cruel world, man.
yeah, the Star Wars show like Andor really does a decent job of like there's season 1 and season 2 now of Andor, and it's kind of showing like the heavy-handedness of the like the empire that wants like it's, you know, empire's usually building weapons and sending in security guards to sort of like destroy an area, or they want to just like mine like a whole planet or something. And you sort of see like the people that get like pushed or pressed out of the way when the empire comes in. The story also follows like the rebellion and the resistance to the empire, and people sort of like striking back at the empire or trying to equalize the power. And that like it really reflects like the modern day world in that we have, you know, we have like these various corporate empires or like national empires like just kind of exerting influence and wanting to grow their size and suppress like other people, and then you have these small groups of people that like strike back, and just the weirdness of like the empire never under like they're just like, oh, these troublemakers always trying to like attack us, but it's like of course they're attacking you, like you're pressing them into a corner where they have no choice. And then but then as soon as the people attack, the empire's like, well, now we have a reason to go in there and attack like even more because they're a threat, you know. And but it's like you created the threat, and now you're just like attacking the threat. And like it's funny how closely Andor tells that story kind of from both sides, the empire and the resistance. It's funny because then I'll listen
It's a
to like
good.
like there's this podcast that reviews like the episodes, and they'll take like the daily news of these protests and things and then compare it to like what happened in this like Star Wars show, and it's like one for one sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like there's one episode that is this very peaceful planet that's like a bunch of fashion designers, like they make silks, they make materials for like the fashions of the galaxy. And so this planet's like doing that, and the empire wants to come in and like mine the entire core of their planet and sort of destroy the planet, but they don't the empire can't just like go do that because then they'll look like the bad guys. So they create like a bunch of tension, and they build like a military barracks like right beside the city, and the city's like getting nervous and stuff. And so then the citizens start to do like this peaceful protest in the middle of the plaza, and then the empire like sets up barricades and sort of like gets all these weapons like ready to go. And then what it finally comes down to is like it's very clear that the people on the planet, it's going to be a peaceful protest, but then the empire has like a secret sniper like shoot one of their own guys to trigger this idea that like, oh, like one of us got shot, like there must be guns in the crowd, we gotta like start fighting back. So then the empire makes the call to like start suppressing everyone and like start killing a lot of people. And then the podcast I was listening to was saying that's very similar to some protests during COVID, where it was like a fairly peaceful protest during COVID, but then the police set up like barricades and they lock in like the protesters in a certain area, and then the police will say like, okay, everybody like disperse, like get out of this area, we don't want protesters here. But then the protesters have like nowhere to go because the police are surrounding them, and then the police take that as like a sign of like, okay, we got to start marching in and like throw the tear gas and like up the violence because to disperse the protesters. But then the other angle is that the media, like when the media covers it, the media covers it as like the police doing their job to keep everyone safe by like suppressing the violence. But really the most of the tension and the violence is like provoked and continued by the police. And then you get this weird story on through the media that's like, oh, the protesters went out of control and, you know, the police had to step in. But it's like very unclear. Like if you listen to the stories the protesters tell, they say like, we were kind of just chilling there and then the police started like throwing tear gas and that's when it went crazy or something. And then that's just sort of, I think that's literally what inspired the Andor show. Like I think the directors of Andor saw those COVID protests and then wrote like a Star Wars story about exactly what they believe went down in the COVID protests.
Interesting. Yeah, moral of the story is that violence can affect change. And in the states that have the monopoly on violence have all the power.
Mm. Yeah.
So really, if we want to have change, we need violence. This is too bad.
Yeah, we sort
These
of
words
get
only
like
go so far.
Yeah, because that's an interesting thing too, where the state that has a monopoly on violence takes away all our other options for fight, like they take away our ability to like negotiate or use democracy to get back. And so yeah, like we're left with like only violence. But then the second that anyone tries violence, the state like uses that as an excuse to just like shut the whole thing down. But it's sort of like we didn't choose, like violence was the only option, you know, in some case. And then they make it seem like it was a choice or something. And that's it's just fascinating, like seeing that happen and everybody kind of like the way the media handles it, the big media institutions, they tell like a narrative that is not really the truth. And then people are misled and it sort of perpetuates like a cycle. Which is just very fascinating to see that, like, because a lot of people, you know, you can go on social media and you can see like people that were there, like video of people that were there, and you can sort of get like the truth and the modified truth at the same time. But then still it's sort of like, you know, so it's sort of like the public has one opinion and then the narrative is different. And it's just fascinating, like being bombarded, like getting information in that way is so weird.
Reality is we're all slaves. The size of our cage depends on how productive we are, how much money we make. Mm-hmm. There is no truth. Guess there's different like scales of it. If you had your homes in the middle of fucking nowhere, perhaps. And then 3 fucking square inch lands you can own by one single.
Yeah, I wonder
by the laws and rules.
If somebody like got enough people together and then they all moved to like a really remote area and like bought, like, you know how there's like cheap houses available in the middle of nowhere, but if you found like 5 or 12 of them, then you could get like 12 friends, you all move to the same area and buy houses that are cheap and affordable in the middle of nowhere, but you'd have like 12 other people that you do want to hang out with. And then you could almost kind of like working within the rules of whatever county you're in, you could sort of like arrange to have a grocery store like show up and like that serves like those people. And you could kind of, it's interesting to think, could you sort of create your own little affordable place to live with the friends that live close to you, with some businesses? You could sort of find like a hiking trail that becomes like the main artery to go from the housing area to some kind of like area with shops. And I wonder if that could start to happen if, like, because you could sort of just like get a bunch of data of where housings are, and then you could create like a little, or like existing communities, like people, musicians or something, like people that like different or have hobbies in common. You could just kind of advertise like a this, this many houses are in this area, and if we all move at the same time, then we won't be like socially cut off. I wonder if that'll start happening more. Because then, yeah, if you like, maybe you'd have to like contact some company to like bring internet, like good internet out there. But if you said like all 12 of us will subscribe to the internet, then maybe they will lay like the cable, or you could split the cable laying costs, and then you could sort of like, in that way you could create like good internet. You could get some local business like support. People could start renovating the houses, and then you'd have like a nice house near people that you like to hang out with like good internet. And then all of a sudden it's like you could refer each other for like remote jobs or something. It could work. Maybe you could start to build something.
It sounds like you're still plugged in. You're still plugged into the system, Richard, with the way you're thinking.
Why? You, because of the jobs, the remote jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess
you're making money, but to
yeah.
what end? Why? Why are you working a day job? Your energy should be going into growing food and
That's true too. Like
building infrastructure.
if you could, I mean, the same 12 people could just buy like multiple acres of farmland. I wonder about the math on that. Like, how much land would you need for, say, like 12 people to live and to have the land to grow enough food that basically is like a self-sustaining thing? I wonder what size. Because I always feel a bit, I don't really understand that aspect of growing food. Is like, you're waiting, like you sort of have to get into a cycle. Like you'd have to grow one crop that's going to be ready while the other crop's growing, so you always have like a something to eat while the other stuff grows. I guess that's possible.
That's why you need to learn how to forge.
Basically, actually, the Amish people are doing that.
So it's as soon as you settle in a piece of land, it's stagnant. Long term, you become dependent on that land. You can hunt around the area, but eventually you have to extend further and further out. What we used to live is we used to be nomadic. We moved with migration. The way we could forage edible plants and berries that were in season. Now, when you settle, you do your work, you forage, hunt in the end, and you wait until your crops grow. But anyway, to answer your question about how much land you would need, like you could look at examples in Costa Rica and these like gated communities that exist, like permanent farming. I guess that's called permaculture. So people are already doing this, and they've done it in Costa Rica and other places, I'm sure. So the first thing is you don't want to be in a cold climate. I mean, you can, I suppose, if you have greenhouses, but ideally you want to be near the sun belt, closer to the equator, so you can grow year round. There's a lot of things to consider, but I would say the most complicated part of your plan is getting 12 like-minded people to come together, who trust each other, who can be relied upon to do that, to build a community. I'd say that's the hardest part, man.
Yeah, it'd have to be done in like stages. Like maybe at first it's just like moving into houses. Then like eventually there's sort of you have to depend on them, but off the start, if you could keep it like it's, so that it doesn't fall apart if everyone doesn't do it, or like if it's slow to get started, like only one person moves for the first thing, then you just have to have like different stages or something. But then yeah, it would suck at the beginning when like you are still alone for like a couple of years before everyone else like moves or something. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna head out on a run soon.
I head out. I'm gonna watch the 100 and I just watched the planet get destroyed, and I think I'm on season 5 now or 6.
The what?
100.
Oh, the 100.
Yeah. And every episode is basically some sort of crisis and people freaking out and having
Oh,
life and death. It's very good.
oh
Good
yeah.
stress hormone.
Huh.
Oh, yes. Eat that shit up.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Thanks for the chat. I appreciate the flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.